Okay, in order to do transformations, the very first thing we're going to do is a horizontal translation. Okay, so that means you're going to move left or right. Then we are going to do a shrink or a stretch. Then we are going to do a reflection. And last but certainly not least, we do a vertical translation. Okay, so that means up or down. So when I first do this, let's look at this. You notice it's talking about absolute value. So that means that the parent graph is this right here. -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3. So the absolute value, 3, 2, 1, 0, 1, 2, 3. Then we want to do a horizontal translation. So anytime we're dealing with horizontal, it's going to be on the inside of the absolute value. It's going to be inside. And when it's on the inside, we always do, I didn't want to do that. We do opposite operations. So the very first thing is a horizontal translation. Okay, so that means adding and subtracting. Well, this right here, we need to do the opposite of. So the opposite of subtracting 5 is adding 5. So we're going to add 5 to each one of these. So if I add 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then the next part is the shrink and the stretch. So that's this part right here. I did not mean to do red, but that's okay. That's the shrink or the stretch. So again, opposite operation. So I need to do the opposite. So the opposite of 1 multiplying by 1/2 is to multiply by 2. And what am I going to multiply by 2? I'm going to multiply the translation that you just did, and I'm going to multiply that by 2. So that's going to be 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Oh, that was a horrible 12. Oh, let's undo that. 12, 14, 16. Then the last thing we do on this one is a reflection. So I'm going to take the opposite of what I just did, the 2 times the x plus 5. Okay, so I'm taking the opposite of that. So -4, -6, -8, -10, -12, -14, and -16. And I'm going to plot these points. So -4, 3. So I'm going to go to -4. I'm going to go to 1, 2, 3. And -6, oops, just for you. -6, 2. -6, oh, sorry about that. How about I do this? I need to do this. I can't see it. 4, 3 would be here. Sorry about that. -6, 2 would be here. And then we have -8, 1. So 1, 2, 3, -8, 1. And then we have negative 10, 0, and then negative 12. Let's do it like this because I just need to make sure I'm doing this right. Color coding, if you can't tell. Negative 10 was 0, and then negative 12 gets me 1. Okay, negative 12, 1, 12, 1, and then negative 14, 2, and we can't go beyond that. Negative 14, 2. And yes, it keeps on going forever and ever. And yes, they are supposed to have arrows on them. Okay, now let's go down here. Now we're going to do the vertical transformation. So again, we're using f of x equals the absolute value of x, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2, 3. So this is 3, 2, 1, 0, 1, 2, 3. Now, the very first thing we're supposed to do is a horizontal translation. Well, this doesn't have any horizontal translations in it. All of what we have is on the outside of the absolute value. So that means we're going to do everything to the y value this time. So the very first thing that we're going to do, I'm actually going to use, I'm going to use this, instead of using another red, because we need to do the shrink and stretch. So I'm going to do it in red on this one. So shrink and stretch. So that's the number 3y. So I'm looking at this number right here. I don't want the negative yet. Okay. So I'm going to take the y values and multiply it by 3. So that's 9, 6, 3, 0, 3, 6, 9. Okay. Then I'm going to do my reflection. So I'm going to take those numbers. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Take those numbers that I just got, and I'm going to multiply them by a negative. So negative 9, negative 6, negative 3, 0, negative 3, negative 6, negative 9. Then I'm going to do my vertical translation. So that means on this one, I'm going to subtract 1. But I need to still be using the negative times the 3y and then subtract 1. So I'm taking the last column, subtracting 1, negative 10, negative 7, negative 4, negative 1, negative 4, negative 7, negative 10. So I'm going to plot these points. Okay, so I have negative 3 and negative 10. Negative 3 and negative 10. And then I'm going to have negative 2, negative 7. Negative 2, negative 7. And then I'm going to have negative 1, negative 4. And then I'm going to have 0, negative 1. Glad I'm doing this. 0, negative 1. And then I have 1, negative 4. And if you notice, it's going to just reflect, because this is the line of symmetry. The y-axis is the line of symmetry. Okay, so we did vertical translation, we did horizontal translation. Now what we need to do is we need to put it all together. So if I put this all together, and I'm only going to use -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. So I get 2, 1, 0, 1, 2. Horizontal translation is the very first thing I'm supposed to do. So that means that I'm going to add 5, so x plus 5. So that gets me 3, right? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then what I'm supposed to do is I'm supposed to do a stretch and a shrink. So I take this right here and I'm going to multiply it by 2. Sorry, I'm trying to make sure I get the right colors and everything. So that means I'm going to multiply by 2. So that's going to get me a 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. And last but not least, I'm multiplying that by 2. Okay, so all I'm doing is taking the numbers I found and multiplying them by -1. Then I need to do the vertical side of everything. Okay, so the first thing I do is a shrink or a stretch. So I'm going to take the numbers on the outside, 3, and I'm going to multiply that by the y value. So that's 6, 3, 0, 3, 6. Then I'm going to reflect it. So that's the opposite of the 3y. So -6, -3, 0, 3, -6. Then I take that and I translate it. So -1. So I'm going to do -3y. Take these numbers and I'm going to subtract. So now I need to plot these points. So I go to -6, -7. -6, -7. -6, -7, and I plot a point. And then I go to -8, -4. -8, -4. Oops, wrong thing. Then I have -10, -1. Oops. -10, -1. Then I have -12, -4. -12, -4. And last but certainly not least, I have -14, -7. -14, oops, -7. Sorry about that stray strand there. And then, oh, wait a second. That's what you get for not zooming in well enough. There we go. And how I can tell whether or not I got it right or not is this should be symmetric on both sides. It should look exactly the same on both sides of the equals, or both sides of the line of symmetry.